cannot get to Juneau except for by boat or by plane. This is definitely the biggest move we've ever made. We even went off the road. It was so late now that it was starting to get to the point where we might even miss the ferry. From yokieB.com. Welcome to my channel, or welcome back to my channel. I did a little poll in my community feed and asked if you guys wanted a knit / crochet and chat about our trip out here to Alaska, or if you would like just a vlog that shows the different clips. I have quite a few clips from our ferry trip out here, but I didn't have a lot of dialogue or anything. We actually all got sick before we left, and so I had no voice. It was quite the adventure. I just didn't have a lot of footage where I kind of took you guys through, and so the vote was for a knit / crochet and chat. I'm going to do a little bit of knitting on my knit collage knit along project, which is the mixtape sweater. I am at the point now on the body where I can just do knitting in the round, and so I think that will be a good project to work on while I try to concentrate on telling you guys about our trip out here. So go ahead and grab a coffee, a tea, a snack, your project, and I will take you guys through our trip here to Alaska. Y'all, I'm so excited because not only do I have this super cute Juneau mug that is handmade by a resident here in Juneau, but also we got a new coffee machine. We got rid of so much of our stuff when we came out here. We got rid of pretty much everything that wouldn't fit in a 15-foot truck. So most of our furniture, besides sentimental items made by family members. I am going to be working on this sweater, but I'm also going to do some crochet because I have not crocheted in a while. Anytime that I do either knitting or crochet for a while and then don't do the other one for a while, I miss it, and I really want to get into some more crochet. I do have a project that I'm working on. It's the sweater that I've been working on from Glorious Crochet Sweaters, and I've been working on it for a long time, but it's not really something I can do while chatting because it's a Fair Isle crochet project, and so I have to kind of concentrate on the color changes and things like that. I apologize if it's a little bit dark in here. Here in Juneau, it is quite rainy most of the time, so it is very cloudy and overcast almost always. We do get some sunny days, but so far it has been very cloudy and overcast for a while. So some of my videos might have that more moody feel to them, but it is just so beautiful here. It's just gorgeous. And I mean, we came from a gorgeous place, so it's a whole different climate, it's a whole different environment. It is just really, really cool, and we are loving it. So I tried to write down everything that I could think of that you guys might be interested in, but if there's anything that you want to ask me, definitely feel free to put it in the comments below. I will try to answer it. It was such a wild experience coming out here. Moving anywhere across the country or just even a few states, it's always a big ordeal, but this is definitely the biggest move we've ever made. So to give you guys a little bit of backstory, we moved here to Alaska from Aspen, Colorado. So we lived in Colorado for almost 6 years, and we moved there from Tennessee. So both my husband and I are from Tennessee-ish area. We've lived in other places too, but that's mainly where we're from. And so that's where we had lived for the longest amount of time. In 2019, we just packed up and moved to Aspen, Colorado, just moved there on faith. We had no home, no job, no nothing. And so it was quite the experience, but that is where God wanted us to go. And so that's where we went. And it is an absolutely beautiful and special place. If you've never been there before, I highly recommend it just to camp or hike or ski or raft. It is, of course, an amazing place for all sorts of outdoor activities. It is absolutely gorgeous, and there is no shortage of really cool places to go visit. We lived there from 2019 until just a couple months ago, and now we are here in Juneau, Alaska. My husband had always wanted to live in Alaska, and it wasn't something that I wanted to do until later in life, but as time went on, we just started to feel the pull more and more to Alaska and felt like that was where we needed to go next. We definitely didn't have plans to leave Colorado really ever. We thought we were going to be there for the long term, and we had just purchased a house. We had really planned on putting down roots there, but God again had different plans, and so it was time to move on to Alaska, and we were so excited for the new adventure. I do have to say that we are very tired of moving. We have moved so many times in the last 8 years, and we are just ready to be settled, ready to not move anymore, and so I'm looking forward to that being the case here. We will have to move one more time because we're planning on purchasing a home, but we are super excited to be in Alaska. So when we started making our plans on how to get to Alaska, it's kind of unique because Juneau is geographically isolated, and so you cannot get to Juneau except for by boat or by plane. So that really limits you in regards to just driving. You can drive through Canada and then take a ferry to Juneau from a different location in Alaska, or you can get rid of all of your things and you can just fly to Juneau and just start over here. That's another thing you could do. But we decided to pack whatever we could fit onto a 15-foot U-Haul. So we had our vehicle, our U-Haul, and we decided to drive to Bellingham, Washington, and ferry from there to Juneau. It's really cool. We took this thing called the Alaska Marine Highway System, and it is just the neatest thing. I mean, it's very common here, obviously, in Alaska because there's so many remote places. There's so many places that you can only get to by boat. So it is just a whole super cool experience. We were very excited about it. It can definitely get expensive if you're bringing vehicles and things like that. That's when it really starts to add up. And then it depends on how many nights you're staying because you have to pay for the cabin. It's sort of like you add different things to your experience. That's kind of how you calculate the cost, what size room you need, what you're bringing, because people also just take this from places in Alaska. They'll just go from one place to the next and you just either get on or get off as you need to. It's really neat because you can take your vehicle. So we're of course in Southeast Alaska, but if you want to go to the interior, if we want to have our car with us, and then we can just drive around with our car. And I do have to say that if you are planning on bringing a vehicle, you want to keep it under 30 feet if you can, because anything above 30 feet long, they charge you extra for just because of how much space it takes up. We looked at a couple different options. We thought about just putting a small trailer on our truck, like a little 12-foot trailer, but it actually was going to cost almost just as much to do that as it was to have a 15-foot U-Haul. And so we decided, well, we could use the extra space. We will just do the 15-foot U-Haul. So we just drove from Colorado to Bellingham, Washington. Quite the experience. We moved in February, so if you live in or are familiar with any of these states, Idaho, Utah, Oregon, Washington, the weather in February can be a little bit tricky. Thankfully, when we left, Colorado was having beautiful weather, and after we left, it had just been dumping snow. So we missed all that snow. That was great. But we left at about 10 a.m. from Colorado. I think it might have been a little bit later, but we were planning on leaving much earlier than that, but we had to get everything with our house situated. And so we started on the road and everything was great in Colorado. And as we started to get into Idaho and Utah, the weather got really, really bad. Winter storms were in every single state that we were going through. Our plan was to get to our Airbnb in Oregon that night, and it was starting to get a little bit later and later, 11 p.m., 12 a.m., 1 a.m. And y'all, these roads, I can't even, it was ice, it was rain, it was snow, it was all of the above. It was crazy, crazy. And so we were going very slowly. There were 18-wheelers off the road everywhere. I've never seen anything like it in my life. There were cars everywhere off the road. We even went off the road at one point. It was just not fun. We just thought, well, I don't even know if we're gonna make it to the Airbnb tonight. So we just kept driving, and the time just kept getting pushed farther and farther back. When it was all said and done, y'all, after all of the crazy weather, I'm realizing that I'm starting the story and I'm not even knitting. Let's go ahead and knit some. So it was wild. I knew my arms were going to be so tired by the end of the night because they were just gripping the steering wheel so hard. At one point, after we had gone off the road, and I won't even go into detail about that because it was super scary and crazy, but thankfully, praise God, we were all fine. My daughter and I were in the truck with our cats, and my husband was in the U-Haul. The truck is what went off the road, and my husband just decided, I think it's going to be better for you to drive the U-Haul because it's heavier. So we switched over to the U-Haul, and thankfully the truck was fine after that whole experience. We thought about just staying in another hotel for a night, but ultimately we just kept going. It was definitely good that we did because we knew the weather wasn't getting better, it was just getting worse. You know, sometimes with those winter storms, you never know how many days they're gonna last, and so we just kept going, and the time got later and later, and it ended up being, I think around 8:30 or 9 in the morning by the time we made it to our Airbnb location. And so I just messaged the lady. I'm like, can we just come like wash our faces and brush our teeth and let that be our stay? Because we of course were already past the nighttime. We drove all the way through the night. It took forever. It was crazy. It was so crazy. We had planned on staying in, it was Pendleton, Oregon, where we were planning on staying. And that was only about, I think, 6 hours, 5.5 to 6 hours from Bellingham, Washington, which is where you take the ferry. So we thought that's good. It'll just give us kind of like a slower day the next day to make it to the ferry, because you have to make it to the ferry by 3 p.m. or we had to on that particular day by 3 p.m. That was like 3 hours before the ferry actually leaves. So they have to put everybody on the ferry and get you all situated with your car, and then of course give you your cabin, and you got to bring all your stuff up to your cabin. So they like to give you plenty of time to do all that. So we were supposed to be there by 3 p.m. the next day. Well, we got to Pendleton and we were going to try to stop at the Airbnb, like I told you, to brush our teeth, wash our face, and my husband already made it there. So I'm in the U-Haul still, he's in the truck, he made it there, got everything done and was waiting for us. And so I get to Pendleton, Oregon. And I don't know if you are familiar with Pendleton, Oregon. I have never been to Pendleton, Oregon, but it has some of the largest hills. I've never been to San Francisco, but I can only imagine that some of these hills are like San Francisco. It's a much smaller town than San Francisco, but hey bud, come say hi. He's gonna join us for story time. So we make it to Pendleton, Oregon, and it was crazy because not a street, not a back street anyway, maybe the main roads had been plowed. There was at least 4 to 5 inches of snow, maybe more, on these roads. So I'm trying to drive to the Airbnb. It's somewhere close to downtown. It was an absolute nightmare. I was like, why did I do this? Why did I turn down these roads? So I'm in the U-Haul and I get this thing stuck. Y'all, it was crazy. So I get it stuck and I have to call my husband, and I'm like, I'm not sure what to do here. The U-Haul is stuck. You know, it's just sliding in this snow, and I just don't know how we're gonna get out of this. It was so late now that it was starting to get to the point where we might even miss the ferry, which is just crazy because we left the day before. So we had been driving for a long time. So he had to come, my husband had to come get the U-Haul unstuck, and thankfully it was all fine. We got it unstuck, but y'all, these hills, I've never seen anything like it. The fact that they weren't plowed, because it was in the middle of town. I mean, we were in downtown. These girls were walking by and they're like, yeah, we don't even park our car here because it's just too hard to get to. And I was like, oh my goodness, this is insane. So we got that unstuck. We got back on the road, and we were really concerned at this point that we were even going to make the ferry. So I had my mom call the ferry and ask them if they would please just let us get there late. That we had our entire lives in these 2 vehicles, and if they could please just wait on us. We knew that we had to make it there before it left at 6, but we were just hoping that it would be okay if we got there past 3 p.m. So my mom called, my mother-in-law called. At this point, everyone knew who we were because our moms had both called and mentioned that we had driven all night. We're trying to make it there. We're doing the best we can. And I don't think we were the only ones who were having trouble. I think that lots of people who were trying to get to the ferry had been calling because of these crazy storms. So we just go on our way. We try to make the best time possible, try to make very few stops. Y'all, we made it to the ferry 20 minutes before it left. So we left the day before at 10 a.m. ish and didn't get to the ferry until 5:40 p.m. the next day after driving the entire time. So we got to the ferry, so relieved. Everyone was so nice. I truly cannot give enough credit to how nice the people are at the Alaska Marine Highway System. Every single person on that ferry was wonderful. So everyone in Bellingham, Washington was wonderful. Everyone on the ferry was wonderful. It is just such a great experience. I highly recommend it. When we got there, they were like, oh my goodness, are you guys okay? How is everything? Do you need to use the restroom before you get on the ferry? Like, they were just so helpful. They had everything ready for us. We got our cats all set up and ready with their little health certificates, and it went so well. So I was extremely thankful that at that point, after all the craziness of the trip, it was just so nice to have just such a warm welcome. pictures on my phone, and so that's what I'm going to do to try to remind myself of these specific times and things. I want to make sure that I don't miss anything. I feel like there's just so much I want to tell you, but I don't want to forget anything. It was really cool arriving at night because you could see all the lights, and Bellingham is such a cute little town. I'd been to Washington only one other time before. Washington is so beautiful. So we are on the ferry. We get our cats all situated. My husband had actually made a little area in the bed of our truck. So we have a cover for the bed, and we put like a whole carpet down. There was one of the rugs that we had from our old house where we were going to get rid of it, and we thought, well, we'll just put it in there for the cats. So my husband made this perfect setup for them. It had like a carpet, literally a carpet in the truck bed. They actually had to be separated because our cats don't usually get along. They're both adopted from the shelter, and so they don't always get along, but I think this trip actually helped them tolerate each other a little bit more. So we had to set up two different like runs for them with barriers so that they wouldn't, you know, bother each other. We thought this would be the best way for them to just not have to be moved around much, and so they were able to stay in there the whole time. We did plan on taking them out at the Airbnb, but we never made it to the Airbnb, so we didn't ever have to take them out. They were able to stay in that little area the whole time. We could feed them, and they had their litter boxes, and they were just all set for the whole trip. We were able to go visit them a couple of times a day. So on the ferry, the animals either have to stay in a specific animal area or they can stay on the car deck. So a lot of people just kept their dogs inside their car, and they would just go walk them when they were able to when it was visiting time. So you have 2 times a day, or maybe it was 3 times a day actually. We just made sure that they didn't get disrupted too much. We wanted to make it as comfortable as possible because we knew it was going to be a stressful trip for them. But honestly, I think it really worked out the best way that it could have. I mean, even an airplane trip, that would have been extremely stressful for them. So I'm really glad that they were able to kind of have their own little area. Once we arrived on the ferry, got all our stuff situated, kind of exhaled from our insane trip, we just walked around. Not a whole lot because we were super tired. We hadn't slept in 2 days, and so we were definitely ready to sleep, but we did walk around a little bit. We decided to get the smaller room on the ferry, which means that it just had the 2 bunk beds. We thought we could maybe fit my husband and myself on the bottom bunk, but we really couldn't. If we were to do it again, we would definitely get the extra bed. It was just not super comfortable, and we were so tired. It's one of those things you just don't know until you do it. If you are wondering about feeling the boat, honestly, I think because it's on like these small channels, it really didn't move all that much. There were a couple times that the waves got kind of intense, but it's not like the open ocean, you know, like Deadliest Catch or anything. It was not like that. None of us had any problem with being seasick or anything like that. None of us had ever been on a boat before, or well, not a boat, but a boat like that before. So we really didn't know what to expect, but honestly, for the most part, you could barely even feel it moving. There were a few times when we were walking around that you could kind of feel the boat moving a little bit, but for the most part, it was really calm. I've never been on a cruise. I've been on boats, but never anything like this. So the ferry is definitely like a really casual boat. It's not anything, they don't have shows and things like that like a cruise ship would have, but they do have a restaurant, they have a cafeteria. You can bring food on there, but if you bring anything that needs to be refrigerated, you just have to get ice, and you do have to pay for the ice. So that is one thing that I did not know and wish I would have known, because of course I didn't bring, you know, oodles of quarters with me to get ice. That's the one thing that was frustrating, besides the size of the bed, but that was on us. But I still wish that the ice would have been free, and I think that might be a miss. They need to give you ice for free. One thing that we did not realize when we were riding on the ferry is that when they are at a location, they're usually there for about an hour and a half, and we could have gotten off the ferry at any of those places, but we just didn't know that, and so we didn't do that. But that would be a really fun thing to check out, the little town that you're in. But it was so neat pulling up to these ports. First, and then Wrangell, and and then Petersburg, and then Juneau. It was a mainline route. So it's got Bellingham, Ketchikan, Wrangell, Petersburg, Juneau, and then it goes to Haines, Skagway, and Sitka. And then over here it tells you the hours, so that's kind of cool too. So for us particularly, it was going to be 3.5 days on the ferry. We left on the 14th and arrived on the 17th, I believe. So it seems like a long time, but it really went by pretty quickly because, you know, a lot of that time you're going to be sleeping. I feel like you have a really nice long time to take it in and just really experience Alaska. It was wild going through some of the channels because you're so close. On either side there was land and you were just going through this really thin channel, but you could see the land so close to you, and it was really cool. You could see the houses and just these different little villages. Petersburg was where it got really thin. Someone even had to go to the front of the boat to direct, I guess, the captain through this channel. I mean, just to be that close to the land while you're in the boat, it was super cool. It was really neat too because sometimes they would make an announcement over the intercom and tell you what we were passing. At one point there was like a lighthouse that we were passing.
And about an hour and a half after that we'll be going by the Ivory Island Lighthouse, one of the last lighthouses on our trip. That's one of the only lighthouses to be exposed to the open ocean and has been completely wiped out more than once. We'll give you a little bit on that as we come up on it. We got 10 minutes right or starboard hand side.
They also have different observation decks that you can go on. That is so cool. They have a front observation deck where you can just sit and look at the scenery, or you can like do puzzles or games. They also have like movies in some areas. So for the most part, you could really just go out on the deck almost any time. I mean, maybe at night you couldn't, but for the most part, you could just go out there anytime you wanted to and just look at the waves, look at the scenery. It was so beautiful. That was one of my favorite parts, is just to go outside and enjoy the absolutely gorgeous scenery. I can't remember how many levels it was. I want to say 3. It might be more like 4 though. It's really, really big. It's always wild to me, and especially now living in Juneau, now that the cruise ships are coming in. These ships are enormous. And if you've been on a cruise, comment down below, let me know how it is, especially an Alaskan cruise. If you have been on an Alaskan cruise, let me know in the comments, let me know how it was. Tell me all the things about it because I would love to hear. One of my favorite things about living here, and even though it is so different, so Colorado, it is sunny so many days out of the year, and here it is rainy so many days out of the year. But one thing that I absolutely love is the fog and like the clouds that just are over the mountains here, and you can see it in some of the scenery. It is just magnificent. Sleep on the solarium. I mean, I wouldn't in the winter, that'd be super, super cold, but we saw some like hammocks. I think you can get on the ferry and not purchase a bunk room, and then you just would either have to sit in a public area or go somewhere like the solarium, and you could sleep there outside. So if you're brave enough to do that, you could definitely do that. I can't remember how many hours it was from Petersburg to Juneau. So this is around 5 p.m. and we arrived in Juneau at 1:45 in the morning. So it is a good ways from Petersburg. And as it started to get darker, the sky just became pink over the mountains. It was like the most beautiful scenery. It was absolutely gorgeous. It was pretty chilly outside, but I just did not want to go inside because it was so beautiful. So then we arrived in Juneau. They knock on your door and make sure that you're awake if it's time for you to go. So then you just go down to the car deck and load up your stuff and get in your car. I was a little bit nervous. I was like, I definitely want to be in the truck because I didn't want to have to maneuver the U-Haul in that small little area on the car deck, but it really was not too bad. My husband and my daughter were in the U-Haul. It's so funny because of everything that happened on the trip. My daughter was like, I love this U-Haul. It is such a great vehicle. So we joke about getting her a U-Haul for her first vehicle. Then you just drive off the ferry and you are in the parking lot at Aquay in